Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and to learn about this important topic. And what I'd like to do, and you know, for many, they don't know the history behind this, so I'd like to take just a little bit of time and talk about the history here in Seminole County and the state of Florida as a whole. You see, back in 1996, an unprecedented thing happened with the use of OxyContin. OxyContin was marketed as the wonder drug, and the company convinced legitimate doctors that with proper use, you are less than 0.5% and 1% likely to become addictive if you use the drug as prescribed. And we knew in a handful of years later that simply was not the case. Medical doctors, law enforcement professionals, treatment specialists knew that the drug was easy to misuse. They would dilute it, essentially making pure heroin out of the drug. Very little was done at the time, and really the creation of that happened with the Food and Drug Administration when they made that statement and they started this whole marketing campaign. Actually, Purdue received national awards for their marketing ability of this wonder drug. So what happened is we saw the growth of pills being distributed across our country, really starting in Appalachia, the Ohio area, West Virginia, more pills than any population could ever use. And we saw a report come out just recently through Washington. To give you an example, Seminole County is the third most densely populated county in the state of Florida. We have a population of nearly 500,000 people and about 315 square miles. During a 6-year window, more than 265.5 million pills were distributed on the streets from a pharmacy in Seminole County alone. As states became aware of this and the misuse of this drug, they brought lawsuits, criminal lawsuits, against executives at Purdue. And 3 of the top executives at Purdue Pharmaceutical were found guilty in federal criminal court, not civil court, guilty in federal criminal court for deceptive marketing practices, because part of the problem was they would prescribe a pill and they would say, this is going to be good for you for 12 hours. Well, they failed to recognize that through prolonged use, the body built up a tolerance to this, and one pill no longer lasts 12 hours. It's 6 hours and 4 hours, and they were selling more and more pills. So what states started to do is put a prescription pill monitoring system together. And this tracked how many pills were out on the streets, who were prescribing the pills, and really they tightened up in a lot of states, not so much here in the state of Florida. So as these other contiguous states put that system in place, Florida was still wide open. And as a result, in 2002, the state of Florida sued Purdue Pharmaceutical, and they found somebody to represent their interest who was very, very popular and well known. It was former Mayor Rudy Giuliani. And as a part of that settlement, it was a $2 million settlement, the state of Florida earmarked money on the side to create a prescription pill monitoring system. However, it wasn't for many years later before that prescription pill monitoring system was up and put in place. As a result, we had more than 850 pill mills across the state of Florida. So as doctors became aware that, hey, we've been sold a bag of goods here, we can no longer prescribe these pills because it's not in the best interest of our patients, people then started to doctor shop. And probably one of the largest ones was what was called American Pain down in Broward County, Florida. If anyone's from Broward County, it's in the Oakland Park area. And what they would do is they would have an adult entertainment establishment across the street. One of the managers from that bar got with a few workers in the bar, and they opened up a pill mill. They found a doctor, a shady doctor, that was going to write scripts. And at the time, you could still fill your scripts at the same location where you were seen. Well, to make it look legit, and they were very, very profitable. I mean, they were making millions and millions of dollars. They said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to have MRIs on every patient that we see. So what they did was they purchased a tractor trailer, pulled it in the parking lot behind the adult entertainment establishment, and then people traveling from all the contiguous states came down to South Florida, went into the homeless camps, gathered up as many homeless people as they could possibly find, march them to the back of the adult entertainment parking lot, walk them through the portable MRI system, and they gave one simple instruction to the people operating the equipment. Scan their backs until you find something that looks like it could be painful, and then stop. And then they would march them all through the doctor's office or clinic, and I use that term loosely. They would fill their scripts at that location, and the people who were traveling drug dealers would pay each person, homeless person, a $100 bill and say, I'll see you in 3 days when I come back. Take all the pills, collect them, put them in the car, and drive back to wherever they were at. At one time, more than 90% of the prescription pills that were on the street across the country were prescribed from one of Florida's pill mills or clinics. We were the main contributor in this thing. So, under the leadership of Attorney General Pam Bondi, we were able to close the pill mills down and create legislative regulations that prohibit people from misuse. The only problem is all of the people that were standing in line at all of these facilities had already become dependent on taking the pill. The problem is the majority of them, more than 80% of them, had a legitimate pre-existing medical condition when they went to the doctor in the first place. These weren't people that were experiencing with recreational drugs and gradually moving into this. Many of the people who have become dependent upon opioids were legally prescribed by somebody that they trusted. And when they were getting their daily fix, they were not getting their daily fix in search of this euphoric value. They had become what we call as dope sick. They were trying to get their daily dose so they could function what is considered to be our norm. And the only way they could do that when they can no longer go to their doctor, and their doctor said, this isn't in your best interest, and they can no longer go to the pill mill that was distributing at record numbers, what they did was they turned to the black market. Now in Seminole County, Seminole is one of the most affluent counties in the state of Florida, got a very, very low crime rate, the lowest in the entire region. But in Seminole alone, more than 450 people last year overdosed, meaning that quite literally, we deployed naloxone, Narcan, and brought 450 people back to life. Upsetting is more than 80 people died last year of an opioid-related overdose. And in our county, if you take every single person that died as a result of a motor vehicle crash, and every person that died at the hands of a gun, either self-inflicted or otherwise, twice as many people died of an opioid-related overdose. It's an unprecedented number, or easily put, there's never been a time in history that more people have died in our county. When we're looking at the state of Florida, 19 people a day are dying in the state of Florida for an opioid. Now, let me explain a little bit about the dynamics of what we see on the front line as public safety professionals and compared to what was going on a few years ago. I've said the number one predictor of whether or not somebody will overdose and die is whether or not they've overdosed and lived. But up until this point, there's been very few services made available to that population. Essentially, if one of us passed out in this room right now, as a law-abiding community, we would stabilize you, we would run over to you, and we would render you first aid to the best of our training and ability. And then we would immediately call 911, and an ambulance and paramedics would respond on scene and do whatever they could to stabilize you. Then, number 3, you would be placed in the back of that ambulance and transported to a local hospital where a medical physician would then see you in the emergency room. 4, after they triage you, more often than not, they're going to give you some type of medical recommendation to include medicine and say, you need to follow up with this specialist tomorrow, or in some more extreme cases, they will move you over to the other floor so that specialist can take a look at you right then. However, if you overdosed in here and died, and literally my chief of staff in the back of the room had to bring you back to life with Narcan, step 1 is going to happen. We're going to try to help you. Step 2 is going to happen. We're going to call EMS. The paramedics are going to show up. They're going to put you in the back of an ambulance. Step 3, you're going to be seen at a local hospital, a medical professional, physician, but more often than not, in many jurisdictions, step 4 never happens. You know what you do? you're released back into the same environment that you overdosed in the first place, increasing your likelihood of overdosing and dying. So what we've done is we've created a Seminole collaborative opioid response effort. We respond to every single overdose situation immediately to help that person and their family navigate a course to recovery. We recognize that this is not a situation of trying to make bad people good, but rather sick people well. This is a medical condition, not unlike high blood pressure or anything else, and I think the doctor is going to talk more in depth about that. Another thing that we do is when people are breaking the law, we try to divert them from the criminal justice system because we know that jail is not the place to get clean. But for some who are sentenced to jail, we want to make sure that we're doing all that we can to break that cycle of dependence. And if you look at this, one of the biggest prescribers of opioids in the country was the VA hospitals. A lot of our veterans have become dependent on this drug, and I mean, these are really, really, really good people. And something unprecedented happened last week at our facility, that we had two female participants in the program petition the judge to stay in longer because this was the first time in their life that they were actually getting clean since they have become dependent. You think about that. It's a compliment to our program and what we're doing, but it's sad that they have to be on the inside to receive those services that they're getting. In the end of the day, the greatest responsibility that we have as a civilized society is to protect and preserve human life, and that's what we're doing. So we'll talk more about it, but that's kind of a little bit of the history and a little bit about what we're doing to take a comprehensive, non-traditional approach. Medical-assisted treatment is what we use in the facility because, quite frankly, this is not a situation where you can simply abstain and get clean. This is a medical condition, and medical-assisted treatment is a big part of somebody's overall success.